And we are going to spend this next hour talking with a couple of gentlemen from the Camden County Contamination Board. They have been on the TCE issue for quite a while in the city of Camdenton. They formed the board. They get together normally the second Tuesday of every month to have a discussion. Last night they had an open meeting at the Mid-County Fire Protection District right there across the street from the Camden County Courthouse. I have James Gohagen and Don Barrett in the studio. Gentlemen, good to have you back with us. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Thanks for bringing us back.
Well, we haven't really talked about the issue, and as is the case with certain things, you know, there's always people who are dedicated to the cause, like the two of you gentlemen and the members of the Camden County Contamination Board. But sometimes, you know, things when they kind of die down publicity-wise don't necessarily go away. But maybe you notice that there's a little bit of a change in the amount of people that were one time, you know, kind of beating on the table, demanding some action. And that kind of thins out a little bit over time. Last night, you gentlemen had an open meeting, open to the public, encouraging everyone to show up and tell their stories. And there have been some developments in this. We talked a bit the time the toxicologist had come. We talked on the air about that a little bit. I was at that particular meeting. And then the folks from Health and Senior Services here in the state of Missouri have come to the meeting to kind of offer some information and try and kind of follow the track of I guess folks that may have been directly affected by TCE in terms of, you know, cancer and various other things that they say can come about as a result of exposure to TCE. And then last night was pretty much an open meeting. So normally, I guess in the past, those meetings have been somewhat formatted by, for example, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, which they're not really big on letting people get too wound up. They like people to kind of keep things nice and civil. But at the same time, last night was a good opportunity for folks to show up. James, you said it was a bit of a wild meeting last night in terms of maybe people finally getting to talk and open up. And
new information. A few members, they're kind of guarded. And I think without having, you know, MDNR and all these official government agencies there, they were a little more willing to talk about things.
Right. Are these people that are essentially, you know, members of the board? Yeah. Are just concerned citizens here in Camden County? Camdenton, rather.
A few board members. I mean, they've got inside knowledge. They used to work for the city. They've been here for, 20, 30 years, so they kind of have a better idea of what happened, when, where, and who.
And we had a lady that came from that used to work for Sunstrand and Dawson's that showed up to the meeting, and she would actually contact the city when they were going to start dumping TCE so they could turn off their plant so that it wouldn't kill the bacteria there. And then when that happened, they would dump into the lake, actually, theoretically.
So is this information, well, you kind of revealed a little bit. Is the other information we're talking about from other members something we can discuss here this morning?
Oh, I don't know why not.
And I mean, as far as you don't necessarily have to use names, and maybe that would, or and maybe in some people's eyes, you don't use somebody's name, and that maybe hinders the credibility of the information a little bit, but maybe not so much, because if there are things that we're putting out here today that other people that are listening know about, there's a good possibility we can bring some of these folks together and probably discuss some of the other interesting issues involving this.
We're definitely going to talk to, I've got a conference call with them next week, and I'm going to bring it up, because some of the things that were said last night were, there was a pipe with a 40-foot plume of contaminated water just blowing out of the ground over there by, what was it, Casey's, the old Casey's?
Right, so that's another site that they're going to have to check that we didn't even know about.
So, a lot of that type of stuff needs to be looked at. One of the things I wanted to bring up, too, before we got too deep into last night was the last meeting before this one, we had Department of Health and Senior Services come in, and they sent a gal, and she had, for the cancer inquiry that presiding Commissioner Greg Hasey had requested. So she had said, we're upgrading this from a cancer inquiry to a cancer study. which bear in mind that doesn't mean anything. That just means they're going to send out a bunch of forms to everybody. But as long as they turn those in, because we are up against the deadline, the 28th is when those have to be returned. And one of the interesting things she said, and she said it in a way that was very causation and effect, was, kidney, bladder cancer is very relatable to TCE exposure. And, lo and behold, guess what we have a high rate of? Unusual compared to the rest of the state is bladder and kidney cancer in Camden County. So just wanted to say that, if anybody wants to get one of those health inquiry forms, you can get a hold of me or Dawn.
Right.
And they've got them at the courthouse and the commissioner's office.
And so then they've pushed the due date for those to the 28th. Was it always the 28th of June?
It was always the 28th, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I didn't really realize there was such a stringent date. And Greg, if you're listening, we might have to ask for an extension on that.
I was going to say, it's relatively, you're talking pretty much 2 weeks and 2 days.
Yeah.
And those forms have to be in, and there may be some information that people need to acquire, or people that are just finding out about the availability of the forms.
And there's some pretty private information on that form also that people may be hesitant to fill out and send to the state. So I would encourage them to go ahead and, if they just wanted to put their name and what they passed away from and their date, send it in so that it's counted. But there's a lot, they want to know the doctor, they want to know when it was diagnosed, where they worked, their social security number, on and on and on and on.
And the next
but don't
of
be
kin,
afraid of it. Yeah.
The next of kin can fill these out too. It doesn't have to be the person. So if it is a deceased individual, it's absolutely fine for their next of kin to be.
But we need these
out.
counted. We need these people counted. They need to count for something so we know where we are on this.
Well,
thing.
I wonder if they don't include all of the information, if that would then kind of disqualify that particular form.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they would at least know that there's somebody there.
Right.
Maybe they have to come back and get the information from them later. But there's asterisks that these must be filled in.
Yeah, like their Social Security. If you asked me what my mom and dad's Social Security, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
So.
Well, and again, all of this new information that's coming out, is this surprising at all? Did you ever think or expect that there may be some other areas of concern, not just the immediate areas that have been talked about? Any revelations among the folks last night as far as talking about this information? What both of you talked about? Is it eye-opening? Is it well, we're not really surprised, or?
So we have a former city employee that's on our board, and it's interesting because I keep asking. I say, okay, we know that this was getting dumped into basically a glorified holding tank that wasn't built for what the lagoon was made for, and then it would get dumped down to the
CB White,
the CB White Lagoon, and we would. I asked the question, and he got really wound up last night. I said, why wasn't our city, enforcing their sewer code? Because this is where it all ended up. It ended up in our sewer system. And he threw his hat off, and he said, like it was like finally somebody understood him or something, because, he said, that's what I've been saying, he's just trying to lay out this, picture of just blatant, abuses by, a $1 billion company. Whenever I say $1 billion company, look up UTC, United Technologies. These guys, they're crooks. They really are. Just to clarify what we're up against, these guys sold, helicopter technology to the Chinese. They gave our helicopter, they pled guilty in court for this. So, these are the type of people we're up against, and it's amazing, what they did to our town. We're wildly, abused.
They've probably got a good staff of lawyers, and maybe, back in the day, they felt more or less like they were dealing with a bunch of hicks and rednecks, and that this information would come out at some point, but long after they were gone.
Oh, I'm positive. They packed up shop, went to Mexico, and then sold it to Modine, who kind of got, if we're to be fair, they kind of got left holding the bag.
Right.
Totally.
Well, we do know that, this is not the first case of something like this occurring, that Modine had some issues when they were in Illinois. I believe there was a lawsuit a civil suit brought against that company in Illinois for somewhere between $20 to $25 million, somewhere in that particular neighborhood. I remember reading this before doing a little research, and that they obviously settled, but again, a rather lengthy process. And I guess as long as you've got a good staff of lawyers,
yeah, you can drag
it out forever. And that is essentially what they did, I think, over there in Illinois. It took a number of years to get that settled. But again, with what we're finding out, and it seems incrementally like you're finding out a little bit more each and every month.
Right.
Our new people are coming to the table. And that's what's so very important about this issue. In order for this to be taken seriously, people have to remain dedicated to the cause. So, I understand that we can't always make all the meetings and everything like that, but at least, staying in touch with people like you, James, and you, Don, and other members of the board, and, revealing this information. But, again, I would say it's more or less information that has to come directly from the source, like the gentleman you were referring to last night that threw his hat off. I know exactly who you're talking about. But he's very passionate about this. And
that's what we want. We want somebody that cares. It gets railroaded sometimes and we go off into the deeper waters, but I am interested what everybody has to say. If somebody else has a story out there and they want to tell us, please come next Tuesday,
we had Pam Devers there from Sunstrand. She also is secretary of the board. And she's a lot of information. And she was shocked that we had another source. All of a sudden we have another site we're going to have to look at. And that's like, well, how many more sites are there?
Right.
And they got into the color of the barrels that this TCE was in versus other chemicals that they used, right, and how much chromium and how much lead and how much arsenic was actually dumped with this TCE, which is a lot. They didn't put clean TCE down the drain. They put dirty TCE down the drain, things that had been, washed away. And then here we have water supplies contaminated and pumps put back online. And we have a letter here from the city to Valerie Wilder. She was actually one of the first people with DNR to work.
Right.
And where they I could read it if you wanted me to.
Well, I'll tell you what, we need to jump in and take a quick break, and we can address that issue. And again, the progress of the testing that's going on with some of the sites that we do know about in Camdenton. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And folks out there listening this morning, if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to give us a call, 573-302-7000, 877-330-1150. James Gohagen and Don Barrett, members of the Camden County Contamination Board, we're discussing the TCE issue in Camdenton on KRMS.
You've heard your mechanic talk about how your car doesn't run well when the filter's dirty, right? Well, it's the same thing with your home's heating and cooling system. And B&B Heating and Cooling wants to make sure your home feels just right. So every Friday, it's Free Filter Friday at B&B Heating and Cooling. Once you sign up at bbhvac.com or stop by their location, you'll get one free filter once a month. For more info, go to bbhvac.com or freefilterfriday.com.
Just right, never felt so good. B&B Heating and Cooling.
The party is on at the Dog. Head to Dog Days for great lakefront dining with incredible views, fresh menu options, and soak up the sun in their lakeside pool with swim-up bar. Get to the Dog this weekend for great live entertainment starting Friday with DJ Kurt. Come back Saturday for the sounds of Noe Palma. Then Sunday, bring your dad out on his special day for great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. Located in the heart of Osage Beach. See you at the Dog.
Well, son of a gun, we're gonna have big fun out on the bayou.
The lake's favorite Cajun restaurant is Shorty Pants. Enjoy first-class Creole cuisine with authentic Cajun dishes and legendary cocktails. Get to Shorty Pants for great live entertainment all weekend long with Joe Runyon taking the stage starting at 7 p.m. on Friday and Saturday night. Come stay at Shorty Pants because they now feature rental homes within walking distance of the restaurant. Enjoy cocktails and dine at the water's edge. Shorty Pants, your luxury laid-back lake experience.
Do you have clutter around your house, extra trash you need to get rid of, or debris from your construction job? At FJ Disposal, you can dispose of all your non-hazardous waste. FJ Disposal is your local dump on the west side of the Lake of the Ozarks, located just outside Laurie on Highway 135. Open Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30, rain or shine. You dump inside their building, keeping you out of the elements. Check out the website at fjdisposal.com, or for pricing or questions, call 573-374-5522.
Econolodge Inn & Suites is still working to be your best lodging value at the lake. With 2 buildings, we can meet a wide range of the lodging needs and preferences. One is interior corridor, no pets allowed and totally non-smoking, while the other is exterior corridor with a mix of smoking optional and non-smoking, but all rooms and suites pet-friendly. In Osage Beach, take the Nichols Road exit to 5760 Osage Beach Parkway, turn left 1 block to Hotel on the right, or call us at 573-348-1781 to make your Econolodge Inn & Suites reservation today.
Pandas only eat one thing, bamboo. It's great because it means pandas have zero interest in eating you. But it's still a shame. A panda would never go to a Subway restaurant. But you're no panda. You have variety at your fingertips. Just check out the new Turkey Temptation collection at Subway. You can get the turkey sub, the turkey Italiano melt, or the turkey bacon and guacamole signature wrap. So don't be a panda. Bamboo doesn't look appetizing. Turkey Italiano melt is available for a limited time at participating restaurants.
Now you can listen to high-definition stereo HD with new HD radios available for purchase here at KRMS Radio. For just $35, you can tune into your favorite classic rock, classic country, news talk KRMS, or the smooth, relaxing sounds of the Cove in crystal clear stereo. Right now, we have a limited supply of these radios right here at the studios of KRMS in Osage Beach. So don't wait. Get yours today for just $35 and start enjoying your favorite stations in HD.
The sports leader.
No other station comes close.
News Talk, KRMS.
9:28 is our time. You're listening to the Morning Magazine on News Talk KRMS. Coming up next hour, Professor Jim Paisley will discuss the national anthem. 82 degrees. James Gohagen, Don Barrett, my guests in studio from the Camden County Contamination Board. We're discussing the TCE issue here this morning. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to give us a call. You can email us as well, live at krmsradio.com. So we've talked about some of the testing that's been going on. Is that essentially something that we're going to get some serious results on? We talked with a number of folks, DNR representatives, the gentleman that represents Modine. Again, a lot of people that have had an opportunity to, I'm sure, go back and say, well, you know, we're in the process of testing, and we'll let you know more once we get the results, things along those lines. But an interesting topic that we brought up off the air is in one particular instance, you know, of a well that you said is 400 feet deep, but they've only tested down 200 feet, and there's a good possibility that if they were to have tested to the 400-foot mark, that they would have possibly found some TCE existing now, today.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't go away. The TCE doesn't. And, you know, also there was a flume map that they showed that had spread clear to Kaiser. DNR had that on their website. So this is actually, TCE is heavier than water. It goes down and it stays down. But if you've got a 400-foot well and the bottom of it's got TCE in it and you're only pumping from 250 feet, you're not really testing the water at that point.
Right.
And how many people are drinking from that aquifer where that water is that has TCE in it?
So based on what you're saying right now, there is a good possibility that this TCE could have made its way through Osage Beach and into Kaiser.
Well, that's according to DNR. Their own map shows that.
Okay.
So I know what Don's talking. So the thing about it was when it got into the aquifer, it might have hit some cave systems, and it, you know, they tested Bridal Cave heavily. It was clear, but they were also testing it out in Kaiser because they did have trace amounts of it pop up in there. So it wasn't really like the actual plume. I mean,
Right.
it probably hit a cave system. I mean, we are the cave state.
Yes.
And probably trace amounts ended up in different places.
And so that was something that there were no other instances of any factories or companies using TCE around Osage Beach, around the Kaiser area where it was detected. It was more or less a result of what was going on in Camden.
Right. Yeah. And you know, it was MDNR partly at fault because they hadn't updated their data, but they had, Bridal Cave and Ozark Caverns out in Kaiser. They had those listed with a big red diamond that said Superfund, but that was just incorrect because that was to denote that they were testing there to find trace amounts, but it didn't mean anything. Their legend said Red Diamond Superfund, because you'll see one on Modine, two on Modine, one in the middle of town, and one at the former lagoon. And it was just that their data was a little bit inaccurate on things.
Something I want to do right now is put out the information where people can go to the DNR website, and they can look that up while we're having this discussion right now, and see some of the information that's available. And again, folks, you're going to probably run into a lot of charts and graphs and numbers. And over the last 6 months or so that you folks have really been meeting on a serious basis here and having DNR representatives on hand, they actually kind of run you through the whole process of explaining that, what the numbers mean, what the various terminology is all about. But let's go ahead and throw that out there.
So you just go to Missouri Department of Natural Resources, Google it. I think it's modnr.com. I'm not sure. And then there's a whole section for our county. It's Camden TCE home sites. And they actually have some pretty easy breakdown. This is what happens. This is how it works. The levels are explained in a pretty easy to read manner, which, we never had that at first. When, first started looking into this a couple of years ago, it was like trying to figure out, a whole new science, because that's what it is, parts per billion, parts per million.
Right.
I don't know about any of that stuff. Well, I do now, but I didn't then.
You almost had to have the tutorial in order to get it. No, and
they've got that now, and it's great. Yeah.
The thing that concerns me is if we're still dumping water out of the Mulberry well daily.
All right. Right.
Then we still have to be contaminated somehow. The contamination source has to be the building. And to me, they're doing testing there now, but to me, and for my peace of mind, and I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but I think the building needs to come out. I think the ground needs to be cleaned up. I think EPA needs to be involved in that. They said they wouldn't get involved until the responsible parties couldn't pay anymore. But we need a discussion with EPA, and I've got their number to call them. And I found out something last night I didn't know, that EPA is actually paying 10% of DNR's cost of getting this done, all these testing right now. So EPA knows about us.
For our area.
Our area. So we need to get it done. We can talk all the numbers we want, and I know they said we have to have all our ducks in a row. We have to have all these things to prove that is the answer. But we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about people's death. We're talking about our loved ones. And I just feel like we need to get ahead of this game, stop the source, and then clean up the area. What good does it do to clean up Mulberry Well if it's just going to keep getting in there? I don't understand that part. Maybe I'm just a hillbilly.
Well, the part of this that I think they're trying to move forward with this whole thing. They're going to do the testing and come up with their determination and then take the action necessary. But it's more or less, even if you take a lot of time, it seems to me anyway, with what you're telling us, is that, trying to give the history of filling out these forms about people who may have had cancer that may be related. The past isn't as important right now. And going back and accepting responsibility and making up for this mistake does not seem as important as trying to get in there, clean up this mess, make it go away, and that's seemingly what a large part of this kind of reminds me of is making it go away, like it never happened. But we know that that's not the case. And again, going back to the building site, Don, that you mentioned, there is a lot of potential for that particular site for use in manufacturing or whatever they would like to build on that site. But who do you think is going to touch it? Nobody's going to touch it with a 10-foot pole, as long as there may be the possibility of contamination, of TCE existing under the structure. And that was one of the big concerns I know that was talked about before is, okay, you can clean up as much as you can clean up, but what about what has made its way under? It has gotten through the foundation and they talked about cracks in the foundation and various things that was addressed.
They showed us a heat map, and I mean, when you look at the heat map for the Modine facility, it's just, I mean, large splotches of red, little bit of yellow, red, all the way, and the whole thing.
And the red, it represents what?
The
Vapor
TCE.
intrusion.
Okay.
So the vapor intrusion that's going on in that building is just, I mean, off the charts. You know, nobody could work in there safely at what the levels are now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, I've told Don, you know, I'm kind of in the middle on the whole building thing. You know, a bank owns it right now, Bank of Sullivan. I'm sure they wouldn't like to just see their, you know, investment, because that's really what it is. They're the note holder, go down the tubes. But, you know, it's got to be dealt with at some point for them to even make a profit on it.
Has anybody made the attempt to approach those folks, Bank of Sullivan, and say, hey, listen, you've got a piece of real estate that's in question here?
Yeah, I talked to him about 3 months ago. I talked to the, you know, one of the bank directors, and, you know, I said, hey, we're having this conference call where we're basically deciding what we're going to do with the building. We're running through some options.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to be on that? You know, and I gave him the number. I don't know if he got on. He didn't say anything if he did, because it was, you know, like 20 people on this conference call. So, you know, I don't know how they feel about it, really, you know.
You know, we're talking about testing and testing and testing. This letter here from dated February 24th, 1999, when the Mulberry Oil was taken offline, they knew it. They knew that there has a problem.
Right.
And they put it right back online.
And then they put it online again. To me, 99, for crying out loud, how much more testing do we have to know we have a pollution problem?
Yeah.
You know, and people are drinking water out of this aquifer that this well is drilled into today.
But now, according to reports, we've heard that there is no TCE in the water.
How far down did they test?
And what did they tell you?
Yeah. I mean, we don't know.
The Missouri aquifer that we're sitting on is gigantic. I've seen it. So I think the, you know, dilution is the solution in that regard. But to Don's point, the Mulberry well is still heavily infected. This isn't going away. It's been there, you know. TCE will last 1,000 years just as it is, and it's not going to degrade or break down. So I get his point on that it's a problem that's not going away anytime soon. That's for sure.
Is there really a way you think that this can be completely and totally cleaned up? I mean,
absolutely.
There is a way that it can be done.
We have to stop the source.
Yeah,
it's been done. I mean, they come in, they burn the soil, they cleaned it up, and they hauled it off. They hauled off a lot of it to Jeff City, as a matter of fact, before when they were making doing the building there before.
Right.
But when they just keep dumping it out the back door, 1.7 million gallons of this stuff has been dumped on our area.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. If you say it real fast, it's not a lot, but that's a lot in a 55-gallon drum at a time.
Well, essentially, then, you know, you're looking at trying to end this problem. And in the meantime, all of the people that have been affected, people that we've lost along the way, people that have passed away, lives that have been lost due to cancer, and obviously people knowing the cause. And now, how many people do you think out there right now are affected by this? People that you know of that may be dealing with some sort of, some type of cancer that could almost be proven to be a direct result of what we're dealing with right at this time. That at some point they have come into contact with the drinking water, and you would think maybe it's not so harmful when you're bathing, but there's got to be some.
So there's, and this is the one thing I took out of the toxicologist that I thought was really interesting, is there's something called hypersensitivity to TCE exposure. Mm-hmm. And its incubation period is very small. It doesn't take a lot, and it can just wreck your entire immune system and body.
Right.
So, you know, it's like 8 days or something like that. So you can be exposed to this for a very small amount of time and then have, you know, life-altering effects very fast. And, you know, I don't know, really. I mean, I'd like to know, but I don't know. You know, there's a girl, you know, she was 16 years old. She got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and you know, this is her writing the paper back in 1999 that I don't think the water is safe here. You know, she lived over in the area, and I don't like drinking in the water, but now I've got these life-altering, you know, tests and chemotherapy and stuff I have to go through. So, you know, a lot of people, I believe, have been affected that way. You know, they don't have a voice all the time, and that's sad. You know, Facebook's kind of opened that up a lot, that they can talk about, you know, what's happened to them and what they believe.
Let's take a phone call. 9:41 is our time. We're talking with members of the Camden County Contamination Board on the Morning Magazine. Caller, good morning. You're on KRMS.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You know, my dad worked in Modine for years, and he would tell me that they had a lot of fires there, and basically they just had the workers would put it out. And so they had a lot of chemicals and things like that they were breathing. They didn't have any personal protective equipment, you know, like that at all. And he's had a lot of really adverse, you know, health effects over the years. So, you know, that's one thing, too. But, you know, the people's properties in that area have been destroyed. Their property value is, they can't sell, they can't hardly do anything. And we know there was contamination, so I don't understand what the objection is to going in and cleaning it up, other than they just don't want to spend any money.
And that's very interesting. And let me ask you a quick question. As far as your father is concerned, did he ever attribute any of the issues that he was dealing with health-wise to his exposure to the chemicals at Modine?
Well, I don't know. He said the fires used to be so hot that you'd have to kind of back up to it whenever they were trying to put it out. Of course, his back, he's had a lot of skin problems with his back and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, he's always thought that, but, you know, he never did anything about it.
Thank you for the phone call this morning.
Thanks.
9:43 is our time. And, again, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to talk about, maybe yourself or a family member that was exposed to the conditions there. And again, this is something that they're trying to move forward on. And you talk about something like, you know, a family member that has endured the effects of the chemicals, and maybe not just the TCE, but a combination of different types of chemicals. Plus, Don, I know that you've talked about this numerous times, the property value of these people's homes, things like that. And I honestly don't know if any realtors in that area, in particular, are as aware of the conditions as the two of you and other members of the Contamination Board.
We have a member, a realtor on our committee, and he didn't know about it, and he sold the lady a property, so he feels pretty bad about that at this point in time. Right. But it was kind of late, but they know about it. And what are you going to do about it? They're not taking the contamination out of the problem. I mean, we've got this huge eyesore staring at you all the time, and he lives across the street from him, James does. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's scary for him with his family there, and they're growing vegetables in the garden. I mean, it's really difficult.
All right.
You can't live your life knowing that everything you do, you have to worry about contamination.
You have monitoring equipment in your home, don't you?
Yeah, I go through. So they do a 4-period cycle, and then at the end of those 4, if you're in the clear, which I mean, thankfully I have been in the clear, mm-hmm. but you know, something interesting got brought up last night, and I definitely got to look into it more. But it was according to rain levels during the TCE, like levels on how rain and droughts affect them, and it was kind of interesting to see because it definitely looked like during the rainy periods it went up quite a bit.
We'll talk a little bit about that. We need to jump in and take a quick break. We'll come back with more on the KRMS Morning Magazine. Here's what satisfied customers are saying about Bryant Auction.
Bryant Auction sold our home in 34 days, 5% commission. It had 6 people in our home with cashier's checks, bidding it up, not down.
My husband and I did nothing but endorse the check and cash it. We weren't even in the country. Crazy not to consider Bryant Auction.
Visit BryantAuction.com. Bid now, buy now. Call Bryant Auction, 573-346-4777, and consider it sold!
Econology Inn & Suites is still working to be your best lodging value at the lake. With 2 buildings, we can meet a wide range of the lodging needs and preferences. One is interior corridor, no pets allowed and totally non-smoking, while the other is exterior corridor with a mix of smoking optional and non-smoking, but all rooms and suites pet-friendly. In Osage Beach, take the Nichols Road exit to 5760 Osage Beach Parkway, turn left 1 block to Hotel on the right, or call us at 573-348-1781 to make your Econolodge Inn and Suites reservation today.
Where can I find a dock pump for my fish cleaning station?
Bowling Electric has those.
Where can I go to replace my irrigation pump?
Bowling Electric has those.
Where can I find one of those shock alerts?
Bowling Electric has those too.
Where can I go to find a fan for my dock?
Bowling Electric has all of that and so much more.
For the best service for over 40 years, go see Bowling Electric, located on North Business 5 in Camdenton for all your electric motor and pump needs.
In honor of baseball season, Rover is out pitching on the mound of Bed & Biscuit Pet Resort and Spa's 2,000-square-foot playground. Bulldogs on first, Pekingese on second, Retriever on third, and St. Bernard's in catcher's position. After the game, players retreat to their condo at Bed & Biscuit Pet Resort, where grooming and many other royal services are available.
When you go out of town, treat your dog to their own vacation. See resort pictures at thebedandbiscuitresort.com.
Free spa day with a 7-night stay.
Bed & Biscuit Pet Resort.
And spa.
This is Todd Wilkinson, Public Affairs Officer for the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary.
This is Bob Teague. I am the owner and throttleman of the Team Amsoil offshore race boat and Teague Custom Marine.
We explore all kinds of boating topics each Saturday morning on Bob's No Wake Zone Boating Radio Show. We're on the air every Saturday morning beginning at 10:06, following the news on News Talk KRMS.
Hi, this is Ed Stuka. I'm the Business Development Manager with Auto Tether, and thank you for listening to Bob's No Wake Zone radio program.
Wake up ready to conquer the day.
Yeah.
We've got your back.
In the morning and throughout the day at work, leave it on my computer.
News Talk KRMS, now heard in high definition on 93.5.
HD3.
9:48, and we welcome you back to the Morning Magazine. Was just watching Fox News in here, and there is a proposal that apparently is going to end up on the November ballot to possibly divide the state of California into 3 different states. We've talked about that before with Dr. Schultes and Professor Paisley. We will be talking with Professor Jim Paisley coming up in hour number 2 in regard to the national anthem. Right now, James Gohagen and Don Barrett from the Camden County Contamination Board on the program, talking about, again, it's very interesting when we think about things. Sometimes we have a tendency to think in the here and now, and we don't always think about maybe the past or the future. And when we talk about things like, when we have a serious drought, how does that affect things? When we have a serious amount of rainfall, we've had a couple of issues, some serious flooding in the last couple of years with this lake. And you don't necessarily always think immediately about how that affects things like the TCE issue in Camdenton. And does that then make for an opportunity for this stuff, once an area gets flooded, to come in and carry some more of this out someplace? And then it does travel, as you mentioned, downstream. We all live downstream,
right,
from something or someone or what have you. But when we think about how our lake works, it's a very effective natural process that you mentioned, where the lake literally kind of turns itself over at one point or another to clean itself. But I guess then you have to wonder, is it a thorough job? Are there things that are still lingering, still lasting? But as we know, over the years, people have, when we have the folks in here, say, for example, from the shoreline cleanup, and they tell us about all the different things that they find in the lake, refrigerators and bowling balls, but they found cars and they found batteries and things like that in the lake as well. And I mean, those things get into the water and sit there and dissolve eventually with the help of the water. But then you have to kind of concern yourself with the overall quality of not just the drinking water, but the lake itself. And not to say that our lake is polluted. The various news sources, St. Louis, Kansas City, have kind of taken the E. coli thing and run with it. And, we don't like to hear that, because obviously there's a major effect on tourism when people are saying, well, the lake is all full of E. coli. Well, no, it's not the entire lake. It's just a certain area that was tested. Maybe the geese,
yeah,
they
are going crazy.
Whatever, something along those lines. But we don't always factor that information in when we think about these things. We think of a flood, and we automatically, the first thing you think about is safety, making sure that, people aren't in harm's way when something like this happens. But now I guess there's probably a little bit more concern knowing what you started to tell us going into the break, James.
Yeah, so it did appear that during the rainy months that the TCE levels did go up considerably. Like I said, I gotta do some more research on it. The gentleman that gave it to me, it did have a color code on it, and I've got to look it up on my own instead of just trusting what that says because it was all in black and white.
Mm-hmm. Let's again talk maybe a little bit more about this letter that you received, Don, and the fact that this is something that happened back in 1999, so people were aware of it. And do you know at the particular time that this letter was sent if people were as concerned as what we're hearing today?
I think they were. Valerie Wilder, she's at our meeting. She actually runs our meetings from DNR, and this was sent to her by Vince Costa, was the director of Public Works at that time.
I wish we could get a hold of him.
Problems with our water controls and repairs were made by RE Peterati Company. I used the well for 4 days and pumped 1,314 gallons into the system. Mulberry was taken out of line on February 16th. I've not pumped Mulberry well into the system to date. I pumped Mulberry well to waste on February 23rd for 1 hour and have not pumped the well since. If you have any questions concern Mulberry well, please get a hold of me. But also on February 2nd, 1999, the Blair well had electrical problems, and I had to put Mulberry well back online. I shut Mulberry off February the 9th and took Mulberry well offline. I pumped a total of 400,000 gallons in that time. I did not pump Mulberry well again until February the 12th when I had to put it back online when Blair line had another problem.
Being someone who's never owned a well, and I've lived a couple of places here at the lake where we've been on a well, but is that something that they traditionally have to do in order to keep the water? I guess at some point you pump the well out just to make sure that if there are any contaminants or anything that's stagnant or maybe sitting around, is that something people do on a regular basis?
No, not at all. And one of their answers to this break in the line where this stuff shot 40 foot in the air, DNR told them to put chlorine crystals around it. Well, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't take the TCE away. So that area is going to be a lot of TCE in it. But you don't ever pump your well. You're in actually the aquifer, everybody's well. If you're at 400 foot down below, you only got to dig 10 feet to get to water. But if you're up on a hill, you got to drill the 450 feet to get to the water. But you're still in the same aquifer here in town. And I was unfortunately in the same aquifer at my house when my wife contracted cancer. And so it's really hard for me to sit in these meetings and be calm.
Right.
It's very hard.
Right.
But it doesn't do me any good to get mad and upset. And but I know what happened.
How about you personally? Are you at this point in your life? Are you dealing with anything? Any adverse health effects?
I do have lung problems, but I worked in the car business around some asbestos breaks.
Don't smoke?
And I don't smoke. No. And but I've been around secondhand smoke, in the bowling center. But still, it just doesn't make any sense that certain things but I think, and we did find out, it does affect women more than men. And one of the things that they give the ladies that had the problem with this TCE is testosterone.
Right.
Testosterone somehow protects against it.
Them.
It helps you filter it out faster. It's weird. I don't understand it, but that's what they told us.
So a lot of the ladies that work there and drank the water, they're having the problems. It does affect them.
So we've got a couple of minutes left here in the hour. Let's talk about where you are and where you would like to see this go in say the next monthly meeting. Do you feel like you're getting the kind of results that you're looking for? I mean, I know the city attorney has been to a number of the meetings. You've got folks from DNR. You've got folks from Modine. As a matter of fact, I think the gentleman from Modine had said the last time that I had heard anything from him was that they're going to take the core samples, and that'll determine the method they use to clean things up. And they have various phases that they go through in order to clean this up. But essentially, as of right now, what are you looking for? What are you wanting? I mean, do you want people to be able to take responsibility for the past? people that are currently living on property, as we talked about the property values in question here, and certainly, do you feel like this is going in the right direction?
I mean, my term is up in November, so I would hope to see some type of, real cleanup effort started instead of just, well, we got to do more testing, we got to do more testing, we got to do more testing. That's just not good enough, and it's been that way for 20 years. We got to do more testing, and they gave us a detailed timeline of what had been going on because we had felt like there was some serious gaps, and they had and then we get new sites that open up that we have to do more testing on, and it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it does slow down the entire process.
Well, I guess again, it's more or less how they want to deal with it. If they want it to just kind of go away, and maybe that's what they're hoping for, that the overall interest from the general public just kind of, like is, or as is the case with most things that happen, there's that immediate response where everybody hears about it, and some people feel outraged, some people are upset, some people it really hits home, like you explained, and then it kind of starts to die down, almost to the point where they're seemingly trying to wear you down. We'll do this for the first couple, 3-4 months, but then after that, we've got to get back to our lives in general.
I mean, I've said it once and I'll say it again, we can't give people back their homes or their health, but hopefully, by continuing efforts, we can give them like some sense of justice from all this, because we were wildly treated bad and unfairly. And hopefully, when, we do see an end path to everything, it's not very clear right now, but, it's a little murky, but, it is happening slowly but surely. And like I said, it's going to be years process. That's what MDNR has told us. And that's unfortunate because, like I said, we've got these billion-dollar companies that did this. It's fact. We know they did it. And, they get, if this was me or you or somebody normal that did this, we'd be in jail. We'd be in jail. We'd be throw away the key. This guy's, harmed thousands of people, but because it's this multinational corporation, they get, a pass, and that's unfortunate.
Gentlemen, as always, thanks for taking time to come in and talk with us. Good to see both of you. And again, as always, we'll keep this radio station available as an outlet to continue to pass the information along. Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.